Welcome to Cyversity Engage. Today's event is on ethical hacking with TryHackMe workshop. This event is in partnership with BlackGirlsHack. Our Cyversity Engage program is designed to grow, develop, and highlight careers, opportunities, and contributions of diverse talent within the cybersecurity space. Some of the topic areas that are covered are career development, career spotlight, transitions, leadership, and technology talks. Our Engage program also includes diversity highlights. Earlier this month, we celebrated International Women's Day. And today, we continue the celebration of the accomplishments of women and contributions to society through Women's History Month. So for today's agenda, I'll introduce our guest speaker, followed by her presentation. After that, we'll have some time for interactive QA. So please post your questions within the QA session. Following that, we'll have information provided for you about Cyversity membership benefits, upcoming Engage events. Also, communicate with us on the Slack channel for Atlanta chapter, and also email us at our leadership team email address, atlanta@cyversity.org. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Tennisha Martin. She is the founder and executive director of BlackGirlsHack Foundation. Tennisha, welcome. And I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate this. As she said, my name is Tennisha Martin. I'm the executive director for BlackGirlsHack. We are a nonprofit organization that is set up to help increase diversity, and we provide services such as ethical hacking training, resources, and other things in the space as far as mentoring and resume review to help people who are trying to start careers or transition into cybersecurity. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm also very excited to show you guys what ethical hacking looks like. So I will share my screen. And what we're going to be doing today is a workshop in TryHackMe. Okay. All right, so I want to talk to you real quick about the phases of ethical hacking. When we talk about ethical hacking, what we're talking about is trying to get into a system and get access in the same way that an attacker would, but we're doing so with permission. And I think it's important to understand that not only are we doing it with permission, but we're doing it with written permission. It's important that you have that so that you do not have to worry about, some of the legal complications that come with the hacking profession. So when we're talking about ethical hacking, it is a process. It is the process of, doing reconnaissance, which is doing the background information to figure out what technology is in use. What do I need to do as far as trying to get in? Are they using Windows system? Are they using Linux systems? Things of that nature. A lot of this includes things like Googling or finding open source information. The next step that we have is called scanning. So scanning is usually included with enumeration. And what this involves is doing a scan of the system to determine, what ports are open. Once we know what ports are open, we can, figure out which vulnerabilities are in there so that we can take advantage of those. Okay, so when we're talking about scanning and enumeration, I often talk about this as like a row of houses, right? If we're going to look at a row of houses and we want to try to figure out which one we want to break into, we're going to go to each house and figure out whether or not the doors are open, whether or not the windows are open, to figure out what's the best way to get in. And when we talk about scanning, it's basically this type of thing. We have a network that has a series of hosts or computers on there, and we want to try to make sure that we're getting in. The best efficient way to get in that's not going to, get us caught. And after we get in, that's the process of gaining access. So after you gain access, that's great. You can get, user level information from that system, but it's important that we escalate those privileges. So it's not enough that we just get in as a normal user. We want to be able to do something such as access root privileges, and that might be password information or something else, whatever the crown jewels are. of that computer. And traditionally, we would, the next step would be to maintain access. So once you get in and once you've escalated your privileges, you want to make sure that you should be able to come back and do it again later, right? So this typically involves adding a backdoor or making some other way to make sure that you maintain access, because you don't want to have to hack your way in every time you have to do an engagement. And the last two steps are clearing your tracks. So again, you don't want anybody to know that you've been there, because if they know that you've been there, then they can gather evidence against you. Even in ethical hacking, we want to make sure that you clean up after yourself so that you leave the system exactly how it was when you came in. And then reporting. I think reporting is probably the most under talked about and most important aspect of ethical hacking, because we are not just trying to make sure that we can get in. We want to also make sure that we can communicate to our stakeholders, to our management, why this is important and what is important. So we're going to hop right in and we're going to be doing an exercise in TryHackMe. All right, so can everyone see my screen? I hope that you can. And we're going to be doing the room that's called inclusion. Okay, so if you wanted to figure out, one of the prerequisites for this was that you have your account in TryHackMe. So I'm just going to hop back to the beginning so I can show you how to get here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say search. You're going to type in inclusion. And this is a free room. It's a beginner level challenge, and we're going to click on that. Once you get in, you're going to want to click the button at the top, and I've already done this in the interest of time, but you're going to want to click the button at the top that says join room. And then after you join the room, there is a blue button that's going to be at the top that says start attack box. So you're going to want to click that. And then down here at the bottom, there is a green button that says start machine. So you need to do those three things. If you do not see the start attack box and the start machine buttons, it's because that you have not joined the room. So you must actually join the room before you see the start attack box and then the start machine. So it takes about a minute or two in order for the attack box to show up. So if you've never used TryHackMe before, it provides you a terminal over here on the right-hand side that you can use. This is set up kind of like Kali. I don't think that this is actually Kali, but this is set up like Kali. And it's basically a machine that you're going to use to access the web server that they identify. So when you actually click on the start machine button, what that's going to do within, I think it's 90 seconds, is provide you with an IP address. So I think it's important that you understand that this IP address that's shown on the screen is my IP address, and you're going to have your own IP address that is going to be different from mine. Okay, so if you use the same exact commands that I use, you're going to see that you're accessing my machine and you're not going to see the results that you should. So make sure that when we talk about the IP address that you're actually using this IP address under the red banner here and not the IP address that I may be typing or that you see on my screen. So there's two things that we're going to need for this. If you happen to get lost, or you happen to not be sure where I'm at, or you missed something, I'm going to post in here. We had a write-up that was written by one of the members of BlackGirlsHack. Her name is Michaela Farrell, and she wrote up a walkthrough for this room. So if you get lost and you miss something that I've said, you can use that walkthrough to figure out what it is that we're doing, okay? The other thing I wanna point out is on our website, which is blackgirlshack.org, you will find that I've included if you go to the bottom and then say go to, and then just Friday Night Labs, the password I've updated for today to just be password, the word password in lowercase, so that you guys could get in a lot easier. And at the bottom, you will see that there is a pen test report that you can download and start to to fill in, okay? Because like I said, it's not just important that you be able to hack your way in, you also have to write up a report that you can provide to your management that tells you, what exactly is it that you did, and then how did you do it, okay? So I've provided a copy of that for you to download, and just as an example, it's just a blank outline that uses the penetration testing execution standard, the process that we talked about as far as like, this is the pieces of information that you need to have. Okay, so now that you all have that, you should have a attack box over here on the right. There should be a colorful window here. You can just close that, and then we're going to double click on terminal. And on the left side, you should see basically your attack machine IP address, which is here. And if you click this little clipboard here, it'll copy it over for you. And then you'll see that we've got 2 steps. So the first step that we have is to deploy the machine and start enumerating. So we're going to do that. So you can just go ahead and click completed on that. And then once you do that, our next plan is to root the box. So what does it mean to root the box? What we're going to do is we're going to, using the process that I discussed before, we're going to scan the box to figure out what ports are open on there. We're going to gain access. This will give us user access. We're going to escalate those privileges to make sure that we have administrative access. And we're not actually going to do the clearing tracks and reporting, but I want you to know that those are important. But I'm just showing you the process that you would do if you wanted to actually perform the ethical hacking at this time. All right, so what we're going to do first is we're going to do a scan. So the way we're going to do a scan is we're going to use a tool called Nmap. So Nmap is a network mapper, and it basically provides the ability to take a look at the web server that they have up so that we can figure out what ports are open and what services. So what we're going to do is we're going to say Nmap, we're going to say -sv. So this says, hey, I want you to give me the version of all of the applications that are on that machine. And then we're going to say 10.10. Whatever your IP address is. So mine is 90.94. Yours is going to be different. Okay, so you need to make sure that you look here to get your IP address. And if you're following along on the walkthrough, we're pretty much at this first gray box here. So we're starting off with an Nmap scan. So with that, and then we're going to also do SC, which is it safe to run any scripts? So we'll say SV and then -SC, so that we can make sure that it lines up with what we have on the walkthrough. So you just press enter. And when it does that, this is the equivalent of you basically walking to all of the houses in the neighborhood to see who has their doors open. Okay, so in this case, we have 2 ports that are open on this particular machine. We have port 22, which has SSH on there, right? This is a way for you to log in, typically for Linux machines, and that has open SSH version 7.6.1. And then we also have a web server, which is, excuse me, looks like Wurtzerk HTTPD. Okay, so those are the 2 things that we've got on there. All right, so we've done our scanning. Our next step is to investigate the information that we found. Okay, so because we have a HTTP, which is a web server, what we're going to do is we're going to kick that up. All right, so you can click on the Firefox button over here on the right, and it will launch your web browser. And I see that we've got some questions. I will try to slow down a bit. All right, let's see. And we don't need TryHackMe, we just need our IP address. So we're going to type in 10.10. For me, it's 90.94. You're going to type in the IP address of your machine. Okay, so again, that's the IP address that's over here underneath active machine information. Okay, so what we see when we do that is a blog. Okay, so this blog looks pretty normal. The first thing that you're going to want to do whenever you get to a website that you're investigating is you're going to want to see, what is on the page. So the first thing that looks interesting to me is that there's 2 posts on here. One of them is for local file inclusion, and the other one is for remote file inclusion, okay? So we can click on one of these and see what it's talking about. So in this case, it just tells us about local file inclusion and how we can do this to be able to access a website. So in here, you'll see they actually have an example. After you read it, they have a URL, right? So this might be something that we might be able to use, okay? So we're gonna copy this, and I'm just going to create a new tab and put this in here. So if you are following along, then we are currently on, click on LFI, notice the URL. Okay, so this gives you a little background information about local file inclusion, but that's the type of attack that we're going to be doing, okay? So you will see when we come in here, and we're gonna come back to our article, that in the URL, it says our IP address, so 10.10.90.94, and then it says article equal name, and then equals LFI attack, okay? So what we're going to do in an attempt to try to use, to do a local file inclusion, you'll see at the bottom here that when we do this, we're going to add a series of ... dashes. So if you're not familiar with Linux, ... takes you from one folder to the next. Okay, so currently, whatever folder we're in, if we type in ... in the terminal, and let me just show you what that looks like. So if I say pwd, that's print working directory, it tells me that I'm in root, okay? So if I say ... it tells me that this is a directory. So if I wanted to say cd ... right? And then I say print working directory, it takes me to basically just the root folder, which is just a slash, right? So it just took me up one level from where I'm at. So if I say cd and then root, it takes me back to where I was at. And if I say print working directory, it gives me that again, all right? So I'm just explaining that to let you know that wherever this web server is, if we get rid of the information LFI attack and we say ... that should take us to the level before that. And you'll see when we do that, that there's an internal server error. So what this means is that, it's keeping us from being able to do that. So let's say if we go up 2 levels, right? So we'll say ... something like that. It still gives us an internal server error. Okay, so because we know that the web server is typically held on the same server as things like such as the password, what we can do is we can just keep adding ... dashes, and then we want to look for the password file. So, or the shadow file. Both of those files are in the Etsy, let's see, shadow. And when we do that, we see that we actually get the shadow file, okay? Which is cool. This is not supposed to happen. They're supposed to make sure that you can't navigate the system through local file attacks, right? So obviously they're not doing that. And if we change this from shadow to password, we can see that there is also a password file, okay? So if we were doing a penetration test, we would be able to say, hey, this has an LFI vulnerability because we're able to access files that have the password information, okay? So let me see if there's any questions. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have any questions right now.
Okay.
In the chat, in the QA section right now.
Okay, cool. All right, so we'll see in here, we want to take a look at who the users are. More than likely, there's always a root. There's always, a lot of these are very common. But if we go towards the end, we'll see that there are some that are not commonly in a password file, and that is a user that's called Falcon Feast, and there is also a SSH login that has access to the MySQL server. Okay, so these are both things that we will find interesting or important later. So what we would traditionally do is we would go to the shadow file, get the hash for this user. So I'm just going to go show you where that looks like. So when we go here, this part right here is the hash for this particular user. Okay, so if we wanted to, we could unhash this to figure out what the password is, right? But we don't actually have to do that. And the reason why we don't have to do that is because you'll see at the end here, there is a comment that tells you that there is a login for Falcon Feast and that the password is root password. So you may say to yourself, hey, this isn't realistic, but you will find that people, when they're setting up web applications, they will often put comments in for themselves thinking like, hey, nobody should get access to the password file. It doesn't necessarily matter if I put a comment in here to make it easier, for Bob, the sysadmin, to be able to get in, right? So in this case, we don't have to actually hash it or crack the password. We just can basically use this. So our login is going to be Falcon Feast and our password is going to be root password. Okay, so we're going to go try and see if that actually works. So if you're following along on the write-up, we are currently down here where it says etc password underneath. And this gives you the syntax for each of the lines. So it tells you username, password, user ID, group ID. Okay, so we're going to go try to log in. So we're going to try to log in now using the information we just got in. So we're going to say SSH Falcon Feast. So this is our username at, now your IP address is right here, okay? This is why I told you before that's important that you make sure you have your IP address and not mine, okay? So we're gonna log in with Falcon Feast at your IP address, okay? So I'm logging in with 10.10.90.94, but you're gonna log in with your IP address. Okay, so what this is saying is, hey, we know that there's an SSH service to log in because when we did our scan, we knocked on all the doors, we see that there's SSH there. So that means that we can log in for using this. And now that we have credentials, we can try to use those. Okay, so if we did not have port 22 open, what we would do is we would probably scan to see if there's like a login page or somewhere, but because we know that there's SSH, we can just, get right in. All right, so we're going to say SSH Falcon Feast at this, and the password that we're going to use, you want to say yes. And the password that we're going to use is the password that is on here. So I'm just going to copy this so I don't mess it up. If you are not familiar with the Linux machine, you can just do a single right click in here and then say paste and then press enter. Your cursor is not going to move, so it's not going to look like you put something in, but it is in there. Just do a single click and enter. And if that doesn't work, then you should just probably just type it in and then press enter. So when we do that, we get in, yay. So we're logged into this web application. So we've officially hacked our way in. And now we need to figure out who we are, okay? So in reality, who we are should be who we logged in as, and that's true. We're logged in as Falcon Feast, and this is a user account, okay? So the way that TryHackMe works is that once you get access to the user account, you then get a flag that you can put over here into the room, and then the next step is to escalate your privileges, okay? So if we're looking at the steps, we've already gained access, okay? So we've got access in, and if you were doing your report, you want to make sure that you show each one of these steps in your report, like as screenshots, so that the person who reads your report knows that you were able to get in. And why does this matter? Oh, well, they can see the password file. And it worked out that the password file had the user account and password for a user. But even if it didn't, the fact that we have access to a shadow file means that we could crack the password. It would take, probably another 15 minutes, but just because of the fact that we're able to navigate through that LFI vulnerability means that this machine is vulnerable, okay? So the first thing we're going to do now that we've gotten in is we're going to say ls, that's hey, list everything that's in this folder. And you'll see that we have a user.txt file. So the way that TryHackMe sets it up is that they put the flag for the user account into the user.txt, and they put the flag for the root account into the root.txt. So we're going to say cat, which is concatenate user.txt, and this is going to show us the contents of that file, okay? So when it does that, you'll see that a number pops up. And again, this number is going to be unique to you. We're going to copy it, and then we're going to put that over here into the user flag, okay? So you'll notice if you copy this, so you right click and say copy, that you cannot copy it over here, okay? You cannot paste it over here. And the reason being is that these two machines are segmented from each other, so in order to protect you. So if you want to get it over, you have to pop out the little clipboard, which is here in the middle. Click on the clipboard, and then it automatically pastes that for you. So then you can copy it there, and then you should be able to use it in the outside world. And when you do that and then click submit, it'll tell you that your answer is correct, whoop, whoop. And then we go on to the next step in the process, okay? So the next step of the process, once we have obtained user access, we've been able to get the crown jewels for that user. What we want to do now is we want to escalate our privileges. So we need to be able to get that root flag to really prove that we've done something, okay? So the way that we do that, there's actually a lot of ways, but one way we can do that is to say sudo -l, okay? And then enter. So when we do that, it tells us that this user, Falcon Feast, has privileges using the SOCAT utility, okay? So why does that matter? If a utility has access to something as a root user, then it can execute that thing as root, okay? So we can be able to basically log in as a user using the root command, okay? So how do we do that? We're going to go to a website that's called GTOF Beans. So it's GTOF Beans. And what this does is this is a website that has ways that you can exploit systems using different utilities, because machines can be configured in different ways. And in this case, we have to use SOCAT, right? So we're going to go to GTFO Benz, and we're going to go down to SOCAT, okay? So you can just say Control F and then just type in SOCAT to take you to there. Let's see. I'm just going to scroll because it's covered up for me. So once we get to SOCAT, let's see. You can see that there is a way to do a shell, a reverse shell, a bind shell, upload, download, write or read, or sudo, all right? And we want to just basically use sudo access so that we can be able to log in, all right? So I'm going to click on sudo, and it tells us specifically that we can say sudo SOCAT standard in, and then execute the shell using the privileges of root, okay? So we're going to copy this. And if you're following along, we are here where it says GTF opens, all right? So we're going to log back in. And again, you have to put this into the clipboard. So, just copy and paste what's in the clipboard. And when you do that, you can copy it again and then collapse the clipboard. And then you should be able to right click and paste into the window. So I'm going to stop right there and see, are you guys following along?
Hi, Tennisha. I don't see any other questions in the QA section. Someone did ask, would there be a recording available? I did respond yes, and you will be able to find it on our website. As far as chat, there were a couple of questions there about accessing where they could find your information from that Michaela put together, the walkthrough. So I posted that as well.
Okay.
Wait,
Awesome.
we got one question. Hold up. No, that was just a response to the information I provided. Okay.
Okay. All right.
All righty.
So the sudo-l tells us that we have access currently as the to the SOCAT binary file. And then using that SOCAT file, we are able to go to GTFO bins and figure out how we can use that to get a shell. So we're going to come back here and you can press enter. And when we do that, it lets us in, but we don't know that we're let in because it's not actually showing us anything on the screen, right? So you're like, hey, is it just hung up? What's going on? So we're going to say, who am I again? Because if we're logged in as Falcon Feast, it'll say him. And if this worked, we should be logged in as root. And you'll see that we actually have root privileges at this point, okay? So now that we have root privileges, our goal is to get the root flag, okay? So how do we do that? We say again, cat root.text, and it's not there. So we can say cat, and let's see, root.text. And it's in the same location in the root folder, and then there's a root.txt file. So again, if you did not know that it's in the root file, so we know from doing previous TryHackMe logins or TryHackMe rooms, is that it's always in the root folder, and it's called root.txt. So we can copy this value now, and we can then put it in the clipboard. So you'll see it's there. Copy it again, collapse the clipboard, and then we can put it over here and then submit. Okay, so I completed that room, but again, as I told you, we're not done, okay? Because as pen testers or ethical hackers, it's not just enough that we can break in and we can show and that we're able to get root privileges. We have to make sure that we include that information in a report. So with that said, what we would want to do is if you scroll up in your terminal, we can start from the beginning and you can be able to take screenshots that say, hey, I was able to do the scanning here. The scanning showed me that there were 2 ports open. It was port 22, which is used for login for OpenSSH, and there was port 80, which had a web server on there. You can say, hey, I was able to access the web server. On the web server, it talks specifically about different ways that you can break in. And in here, there's information for being able to access through directory traversal, different areas of the system, right? So we did that and we got rid of the name of the article and we just put in a few of these to be able to break in. So you're going to want to show a screenshot showing that you were able to get in and access the password file and the shadow file. So in this case, the password file actually has a comment with the password in there. So we would want to highlight that and take a screenshot for our report. And then we can also, if that didn't work out, as I mentioned before, we could just do a crack. We can do a password cracking of the value that's in the shadow file. And then you want to make sure that in your report, so this is a copy of the report that I put up there. It's basically just an outline. You're going to want an executive summary, an overview, a scope, the testing outcomes, and then the overall risk, okay? In addition to including screenshots that show exactly what you got for each section. Okay, so our overall testing outcomes are going to show like, hey, we were able to execute a LFI using directory traversal to be able to access password and shadow files. We were able to get the administrator login and escalate privileges on the system. So when we're talking about a system that maybe holds credit cards or a system that holds important information, right? This is very high risk. It could be considered critical based on what information's in there. So if it was that easy to be able to get into someone's system, at this point, I would have all of their credit card information. I would have all of their, PII. I would have everything that I need to be able to, basically either sell that information or to be able to, put it on, whatever that happens after that. But as an ethical hacker, our job is to use the same tools and techniques that malicious actors do to break in. And then after we're done, we want to write up a report that basically says, hey, you've got some very high, very critical vulnerabilities on your system that are allowing for elevation of access, and then you need to fix. So this tells me that, maybe you don't have a great process or great security controls in place because we're able to do this. So we would update the report and we would make sure that we can document and prove the business case, prove to them that somebody is able to get root access. And this has been a real system. In addition to, saying, hey, here's this, root flag, we would say, hey, here's your credit card number, or here's your pay stub, or here's some other private information that I shouldn't have access to. And that usually conveys to people the seriousness of, hey, I was able to break in. And as you can see, it only took maybe about 30 minutes to do that. So questions? Q&A.
Okay, so I'm looking at Q&A. Don't have any further questions at this time. I think everyone was trying to walk through the exercise with you, but for our participants, if you have additional questions, please post them in the QA for Tennisha to answer.
Yeah, like if you got stuck somewhere along the way, as you can see, it's pretty quick to get to the point where we've been able to get in. So if you have questions, you got stuck somewhere, let me know, and I can answer those for you since we've got a couple minutes.
Got some comments coming through saying this was so impressive. Someone else conveyed they couldn't get into TryHackMe room.
Okay.
Here's another question. What if the root password was encrypted?
Absolutely. So we saw in here that there's a password file. The password file told us, hey, there's a Falcon Beast account and it has a password associated with, right? So in Linux machines, there are password files that tell you the user accounts, and then there's a shadow file that actually gives you the password. So here we see that this isn't a password. And if we were to put this into a system, right, the $6 tells us, what type of hash or what type of encryption is used. And then this is actually the salt for the password, if there is one, this value here. And then the value that's after the last $sign tells you the actual hash of the password. Okay, so with that information, we could, and let me see if this has internet. 6. No. $6. Password hash. So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of things that are available, but if a password hash starts with $6, then this is it looks like a SHA-512 algorithm, right? So with that information, we could say SHA-512, hold on. All right, so when we do that, we can go to one of these websites, and you'll probably want to try to find one that is less sketchy looking. So I would think that maybe the higher up we go, we can probably get something. So in this case, it says, hey, what is the text here? So we could put the value into, let's see if I can get to the end of this. we can put the value into here. And then I don't need these dots. And I'm not even sure which part of this, but I'll just put this in here. And then we'll see what the salt is. The salt is the second part. Oh, I included the salt. That's part of the reason why it looks crazy. So you could use the salt and you would basically put it into this system. Let me get rid of the datum sign. And we can see if this works. So maybe this one doesn't work. But basically with the knowing that it's a SHA 512, knowing that this is the salt and that this is the password hash, we could do that. But I think at the end, there's some additional information here that is included on there. So you'd have to parse it out, to make sure that and I can't actually see what's over there right this second, but that's basically what you would do. Let's see. Well, yes, the outline of the report is available on the website. So I told you blackgirlshack.org/FNL, which is Friday Night Labs. I just changed the password to make you guys be able to get in easier. At the very bottom, you'll see that there is a download for the report template that I provided, but you can also do a search for PTES, which is Penetration Testing Execution Standard, and it tells you the contents for what's supposed to be in a report.
We have a couple of more questions as well. Someone asked about, okay, what is a good first step for someone new to ethical hacking that wants to get started? And is all lost if they were lost in today's walkthrough?
Oh, absolutely not. Okay, so I tend to talk pretty quickly, and I assume a certain level of knowledge based on this, right? But what you will see is if you do a Google search is that people like Michaela, who have this write-up here on Medium for this room, they provide walkthroughs all over the internet. There's also a whole bunch of people who do this specifically in YouTube. So you can do a Google search for a specific room and then somebody can actually show you what needs to be done, right? So what typically happens if this is the first time you've ever done a TryHackMe room, you're like, hey, how does she know those commands that go in there? How do you know what happens when it doesn't work out? What if I'm not getting the expected results? All of this is a result of, hours and hours of practice, right? I am actually self-taught. So, despite that I've got like a whole bunch of degrees, most of the things that I've learned in the penetration testing and ethical hacking space has been done through sites like TryHackMe and Hack the Box, right? If you are super beginner, I would suggest that you start off in TryHackMe. TryHackMe has a lot of things available for people who are completely new. So like if you're starting out in cybersecurity, there is a room here for like, hey, this is what's offensive security. This is what's defensive security. They've got a lot of other paths. If you click on the learn button for, hey, I am new to this. I don't understand cybersecurity basics. The words that Tennisha's saying don't make sense to me. You might want to start off in pre-security. So this gives you some kind of foundations like, hey, what do we talk about when we're talking about scanning? When we talk about a port number? So if those things are all foreign concepts, you could do, a room like pre-security to, and it's not even just a room. This is actually a track. So, they estimate it takes 40 hours to get through this, but you basically go through each room step by step and you learn, you practice. It's the same thing as if you were trying to get good at an instrument or to get good at surgery or anything else. You want to just keep practicing. And with time, it'll be more comfortable. When I first started off, I was like, what are you talking about? This doesn't make sense, right? But as you start to see more, you learn more, then you can get the hands-on skills. We at Black Girls Hack do a Friday Night Labs every Friday pretty much, where we walk through a room and we talk about what needs to be done. We also have a one that's on Tuesday nights, which is called Ethical Hacking Explained Slow. It's not live streamed, it's not recorded. It's set up for very, very, very new beginners that can basically hop onto our Zoom. We'll go through a room. We allow you to ask what you may feel like are, maybe not smart or stupid questions, so that you can get comfortable and understand why we're doing what we do, right? So I'd say find you, I think Cyversity does a lot of things in this space as well. Find, meetups, find people who are doing this, and then just start practicing. And this doesn't make sense. Maybe after you see a couple of these, then you'll be like, hey, before I wasn't comfortable, but after I've done a couple of rooms, I understand what they're talking about. I'm beginning to understand, right? And at least know enough to know, like, hey, I need to learn more in a certain area.
And this next question somewhat goes along with the previous one, more focused on Linux. Do you have to know Linux to complete this exercise that you just went through? And then to add to that, is there anything in TryHackMe to help those to acquire more knowledge about Linux?
Absolutely. So you'll see that there is, in the pre-security track, a Linux fundamentals down here. There's also Windows fundamental, right? If you are not familiar with Linux at all, there's also a site that's called Over the Wire. And let me just show you this. And we run these sometimes. Overthewire.org, Bandit specifically. Bandit has, it's set up like a capture the flag. There's games where you go from level 0 to level 33. And each level of, go away. All right, each level of the game is a different Linux exercise, so that as you are going through level 0, you have to kind of like, hey, learn how to use man, learn how to use different commands, right? And then basically when you go from 0 to 1, it takes you to the next level, and there's additional skills that you learn. And we actually have write-ups for the bandits in that same place, I believe. So at the beginning, see, it says bandit 11 through 20, bandit 20. So it walks you through how to level up your Linux skills in here. But this is also available by a whole bunch of people online. We've recorded on our YouTube channel for Black Girls Hack a bunch of walkthroughs on how to do things in this space. So I would give the same example to the same advice to anybody. Find people who are doing it. If you're a physical learner and you need to actually need to see and you actually need to do this, or if you just need to see a write-up about it, then you can use walkthroughs that are available either on our page or anywhere on the internet. But there's a lot of resources out there. And again, an hour a day, half an hour a day, whatever, working on the skills, and you'll find, just like memorizing something, that the more you practice it, the more you'll learn.
Exactly. Okay, so here's another question. Do you need to be a coder, or how important is knowing coding to do this ethical hacking?
You don't need to know coding, but you need to be able to, at a minimum, like if we're looking at a website, and we did this in our, the room that we were just in, you don't have to necessarily know how to code, but you should be able to, for example, if you look at the web server and you say right click view page source, right? You should be able to say, hey, I don't need to know HTML to know what each one of these things are doing. But, if someone's going to put a comment in here, the comment ends up being green, right? So if I'm looking to see if somebody, stashed something that's important in here, I'm going to look to see if the green areas are, right? Or if there is something that tells me something about the folder structure. For example, there's a static folder, there's a CSS folder, and there's a file called this in that folder, right? So I can use information from a website's code, for example, their HTML code, to find out information about how to get into that system or how to navigate in it, right? So you don't have to, be able to develop a website to be able to test or penetrate, do ethical hacking on a website, but you have to at least know what it is that you're looking for. So like you see in here, the comments are green, the keywords are purple, the links are blue, right? So this, just knowing that will help to, you know, make sense as far as like, what is it that I'm looking for? Well, if they put a comment in here, right, it's probably going to be in green. So I'm going to at least check the message to see if somebody said, hey, the password is to get in is, you know, this. So in this case, you'll see Falcon Feast is actually down here at the bottom of the page, right? So if I did not get to the password file, I know I could use Falcon Feast because that's a user in the system, right? And you see at the bottom of the blog, it tells you, hey, this is the Falcon Feast site. And when you look at an actual blog, it'll tell you at the bottom who wrote the blog, right? So we just need to be able to look for information and see what could be useful for us. But there's a lot of different ways to do it. And, you know, a lot of them don't involve actually knowing how to code.
Thank you so much, Tennisha. We greatly appreciate it. Let me check over here in the QA and see if we have any other questions. I don't see any others. So this was absolutely great. I would encourage our participants today to review the resources Tennisha provided. You will also be able to access the recording of this exercise as well on our website. If you will check later today under on-demand resources, and listen to the recording. So we definitely encourage that. Tennisha, I want to say to you, thank you so much for this great exercise today. I think I'm going to go in and try it myself. Okay. Yes. Very interested in doing that. So to our participants, just want to provide you with a little more information about Cyversity, who has a similar mission to BlackGirlsHack. Our mission is to, excuse me, sorry. Our mission is to achieve the consistent representation of women and underrepresented minorities in the cybersecurity industry through programs designed to diversify, educate, and empower. So I'll give you some information about our membership benefits. We have exploration, and we utilize cyberseek.org, where you can find out more about different roles of cybersecurity within the cybersecurity space. Also, there is another tool that you can access through our website called Competency Core, and you can go out and assess your skills and your readiness for particular roles within the cybersecurity space as well. And develop your skills. We have our events like today's Engage program. We have scholarship opportunities to allow you access to training opportunities and education certification programs as well. And we have a mentoring program. So please check out our website. And then lastly, you can connect with us through becoming a member of the Cyversity community, as well as communicating with us on our Slack channel. We're also on social media through LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. So check us out at www.cyversity.org. And to join our organization, January 1st this year, we do have paid membership. As I just explained to you, some of the benefits, the cost for membership is minimal. We do have student memberships as well as professional memberships. So please join and take advantage of these opportunities. And lastly, earlier we posted a copy of a survey in the chat session. I ask, if you will, please complete the survey to provide feedback on today's webinar. Also, you can find here other Engage events that are upcoming this month. And then last on our list, we are having a national conference this year, November the 6th through the 8th. So please save the date. And you can find more information on that as well on our website. So thank you so much for joining us today, Tennisha. It was a pleasure to have you join us. You have challenged me, and I'm going to take on the challenge, okay? So to everyone else, thank you again. Be safe and stay connected. Thank you.